Good afternoon. My name is Moise Michel. I'm here with the National Black Guy Network, and I'm here with Terry Williamson, NAACP President of the branch of Fayetteville. And how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing pretty good. You?
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've seen you in the news as of recently. My first question to you, how do you feel about the situation in Charlottesville that took place a month back?
Charlottesville was very disappointing vis-a-vis the response, the planning, the after action. Clearly, when it comes to the remarks that came out from the President of the United States, extremely disappointing. But as with many things, I always try to find the silver lining in the darkest cloud. And from that, in the aftermath of what took place in Charlottesville, we also saw a very broad response from people across this nation that stand against hate, that stand against divisiveness. And I was particularly encouraged at the upswelling that countered what was evident in the alt-right and what manifested in Charlottesville.
Okay, and to piggyback on that, with the situation, the young lady, her name was Heather Haley, if I'm not correct. But with that situation, you see, it was a white woman who died for that cause on that day. Like, what did that say to you? You know, as you said earlier, in regards to no hate.
Well, again, as a black man, we automatically, because of the color of our skin, we know what we're dealing with. It is always gratifying to see when we have people of a different racial background that are willing to step forward and say that this is not right. Mm-hmm. And that this needs to change. Mm-hmm. It is always gratifying and very critical for any progress to be made that we have a broad coalition of people that stand up and they are willing to fight for change and to right a wrong when they see it being done.
Okay, so how do you feel about 45 taking so long to respond, and his response when he finally responded to that incident? I will not call him president, and I will call him 45.
I think 45 speaks for himself. There are many people of the Republican political persuasion that are extremely disappointed with 45. There are many people that are independents that are extremely disappointed with 45. Conversely, there are a fair percentage of people of that persuasion that are willing to go along with him simply because they call themselves Republican, simply because they call themselves conservative. Even some Christians, allegedly Christians, go along with what 45 stands for. And I have to say that they have to answer to their own maker.
And last night, I'm assuming 45 was at a rally, I don't know where, and he stated this comment, I don't know verbatim, but he stated that these gentlemen in the NFL, if they kneel, he said the owners should fire these sons of bitches, as he said on the podium. But when he spoke in regards to Charlottesville and he was referring to the white supremacists, he said they were fine people. What is your take on that? Because when I heard that, I was beyond, angry. Just talking about it, I can't fathom to understand why people still defend this man. So how do you feel about those comments he stated last night?
I hate to give any kind of press to what comes out of 45's mouth, because in a way you're supporting the narrative that he and his ilk put out anyhow, where they seem to choose the most divisive, hateful thing that can be said, and they throw it out there to start the buzz. A lot of this, frankly, I think is about distraction. Where if 45 throws out some outrageous rhetorical statement, and all of a sudden he gets the media spun up to where you're concentrating on responding to that outrageous rhetorical statement, then you're not watching what's going on in the bureaucracy of the Justice Department, where they're overturning civil rights laws and policies that have been put in place for generations. You're not watching that because you're responding to what bombshell 45 has thrown out there today. So I think we have to be careful to not allow ourselves to be spun around and misdirected to miss what's going on in the bigger picture by focusing on some small piece of minutia that may be hateful. It may be something that really just sticks in your craw, but if it causes you to miss a more fundamental threat, then he's winning.
So, as the president of the branch of Fayetteville for the NAACP, what can we do as citizens to get this man impeached?
Well, I think you need to stay informed. I think you need to stay educated. I think you need to communicate directly to your local legislators, to your local politicians, to your county commissions, to your school boards, to your police force, to your police chiefs, and share with them where you see things that are being done wrong and inappropriately in your community. And you need to make sure that you use the policy and the laws that are in place.
Well, Mr. Williamson, since you stay in regards to staying informed with the community, so on, in regards to voting, I've never voted in my life. What would you tell me to make me think twice, or to encourage me to vote?
Well, first off, I would tell you that it is extremely disappointing to hear of a young black person, a young person period, but a young black person that has not exercised their vote. I'm sure you've probably heard from time to time that people died for you to have that right.
I agree.
And what that means is that for many generations, we could not vote. We could not exercise that right. And people gave up their lives to ensure that you had that opportunity to express your voice. Many people today, many minorities today, are subject to say, well, why should I vote? It doesn't matter. It's not going to change the system one way or the other. And see, that's where you are deadly wrong. Because when you choose not to cast a vote, you are in effect voting for the opposition.
That's right.
You are in effect, by not casting your God-given right to cast a vote, you are instead saying that I'm supporting what the right-wing conservatives are pushing, because you're not registering your voice in your opposition. You are instead supporting what is going against your best interests. So I would challenge you to step back and take a look and consider what your decision to not cast your vote really does.
Well, you know what? Now that you mentioned that, I look at the news a lot, right? And I know we're voting, it's an every year process. It's not every 4 years. Because I know if you want to vote, you got to start from your community within. Who's running your community? Who you putting in charge? Who's the elective that you have to check with if there's an issue with the school? So on and so forth in the community. But I used to use the excuse, being a man who was once incarcerated, unfortunately, that me having to stay in this country as a black man, they don't care what I have to say. I feel that my vote don't matter in the sense that my name is already tarnished in a sense in this country. Me being a foreigner, so I'm from Haiti, so I look at things much differently. Knowing from where my ancestors came from, knowing my history, so I kind of look things differently in that sense in regards to voting. And there's times I tell myself I should vote, I should register to vote. But when I see how they give black people pushback in regards to voting, like North Carolina, it's heavy pushback. All through the Midwest, it's heavy pushback. I'm saying to myself, how much more as black people can we fight in America? I know we have to fight till the day we die. But I'm saying, is there other ways
But let me ask you
go back to the system besides voting?
Do you think that there's a reason that across the nation there are these significant efforts to deny people the vote? Is there a reason for that? Why? If your vote doesn't matter, would there be so much effort
to keep you from voting
and treasure and resources put in place to stop you from voting if it didn't matter?
That's true.
So if you go deeper than that, and even if you are a former a felon,
Yeah.
there are even ways that former felons can have the right to vote restored. And in fact, that's one of the workshops that our branch of the NAACP is planning to put on early next year, where we're reaching out to former felons or felons to help them to understand what process and procedure they can go through to get their voting rights restored. There's a way to get, not all, depending on the type of felony that was committed, but some felons can be wiped out for the restoration of your right to vote. And it is critical, very critical. You've already noted that you recognize that where it really counts most is locally.
Yeah, locally.
And it does, because that's where your school boards, that's where your property taxes, that's where your local police force, that's where your local fire department, all of these local things are determined by people that are elected into office to represent the local community. And then it steps up to a higher level, to the national level. Right now you hear there's a great deal of uproar that has been going on since the election of 45, because one of his primary objectives seems to be to eliminate everything that President Obama put in place before. That's his total policy structure, is to be anti what President Obama did. And one of those things is overturning the Affordable Care Act. And I am just, I hate to use the term delighted, but I am encouraged by the level of protest that is taking place across this country, where before you only heard about how bad Obamacare was. Oh, it's going to destroy this nation, and oh, we can't have that. It's going to bankrupt the economy. Well, none of that happened. Instead, you had millions and millions of people that never had health care coverage before. Suddenly, they were covered.
That's right.
And now, with 45 in, one of his priorities was, I'm going to eliminate Obamacare on day one. Well, we are coming up on day 289, and Obamacare is still there strong.
Still going strong.
And to this day, right now, there's a last-minute effort to appeal it under cover of darkness, where there have been no debate, there has been no scoring of the impact of this proposed law, but they're trying to rush it through Congress under what they call ratification, where they only need a simple majority to get it through. And I'm thankful to say that there are still some Republicans, and again, the NAACP is not partisan, but there are still some Republicans that stand on principle. And they say that I will not support this proposal going forward because it is not the best that we can do as a country. What they're encouraging is for Republicans and Democrats to sit down and put their heads together legislatively and do what is right for the nation. That's John McCain.
Yeah.
Okay, John McCain and I personally don't agree on a whole lot of things. But when I see a politician that steps up for what is right, okay, I have to stand by that politician.
I agree. And, you know, to piggyback on that, where are these same Republicans when it comes in regards to DACA? You know, the reason why I say that, because I have family under that program. I have family under the TPS program as well. And you know, with we had the earthquake back in 2010 in Haiti, and then just last year we had Hurricane Matthew that came and ravaged the country even further. You know, and to see like family members and friends, you know, come to this land and they do better for themselves, but yet you threatening them to send them back home where there's not much that's waiting for them back home. And like, how do you feel in regards, you know, with that situation?
Well, again, I have to say that there are a number of Republicans, along with a number of Democrats, more Democrats than Republicans, but there are some Republicans that are supportive of protections under DACA, where there is a general majority consensus across the nation that says that if you were a child that were brought to this country illegally, you had no say in that.
Mm-hmm.
This was a decision that your parents made.
That's true.
But you have lived in this country for the past 15, 20, 25 years. You don't know any place else. You have no place else to go to.
Right.
It would be inhumane
That's right.
for us as a nation to
Just send
take
you back to
these
Africa.
young people that have gone to school,
Right.
they've paid taxes, they haven't broken any kind of laws, they have tried to be legally abiding
Citizens.
good citizens of
Right.
this country, to take them and kick them out of the country. Now, fortunately, I will say that there seems to be an area in the heart of 45 that has been exercised by pushback from within his own circles to where he's willing, he now appears willing to walk back from the harsh measure that he proposed going forward. I believe it when I see it, but there's always a glimmer of hope, and I would rather work with that than to just stare into the gloom.
Mr. Williamson, how do you feel with the situation now? We have Kim Jong-un, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Kim. And now he stated what he stated, that somebody has to deal with Trump, with 45. Do you fear war's on the horizon?
War's always on the horizon, my friend. Before I retired, my profession was the Foreign Service, which was diplomacy. So for 20 some odd years, I was involved in the apparatus that was constantly trying to do what we could to prevent war. I'm still 100% behind that, and that's actually one of the most personal areas of distress that I have, whereby the current administration has seemed to do everything that it could to undermine the ability for diplomacy to be effective. They have not staffed senior positions. Most of these assistant secretaries and undersecretarial roles in the State Department remain vacant. They are proposing draconian cuts of up to 40% in the diplomatic apparatus. Well, if you don't have the resources in place to exercise diplomacy, how can it possibly succeed? So they seem, 45 and his administration seem to be doing all that they can to make the big stick of defense and war be the go-to tool that you go to when you deal with international situations.
And earlier you just stated that when I asked you if there was war on the horizon, you stated every day is a war. And that's true. I feel that as black men, there's a war against us. There's a war against us for the skin color. It's not only black men, it's black women as well. I feel like this war's been, ever since we stepped foot on this land, there's been a war against us, especially today. And I'm a father to four, and I have 2 elder boys. And, you know, hearing what I see in the news, I cringe all the time. You know, one of my sons just got his license, so now he's capable to drive in the streets. I'm afraid that the cops might stop him one day and I just get the news that he's gone and I will never see him again. And how do we combat this war? Because I really don't see no way that we can combat it. Because even when the officer kills this black man, he still walks.
Well, see, I'm going to bring it right back around to you full circle again. It is a travesty of justice that has reoccurred multiple times across this nation, where there is clear, overwhelming evidence that a black person has been killed when they should not or did not need to be killed. And yet we still see a multitude where the defendant, usually a policeman of the Caucasian persuasion, is released or is not charged.
Mhm.
And it comes right back around again, where a lot of times the individual that is making that decision to release that policeman is an elected or appointed judge. Okay? So I'm bringing it right back
voting,
to you
back
again.
to voting, yes.
When you don't vote, then you allow people to do things
Have
that are
authority.
against your best interest.
Mhm.
Where right now, one of the things that 45 is trying to do is he's trying to fill and stuff the courts
Yeah. With the persuasion.
with extremely conservative far-right jurists.
Mhm.
So, I say again, we have to take ownership a lot for what we bring upon ourselves.
Mhm.
Things don't happen just like that. It's often a long-term process that you have to go through. And that involves getting people in positions where when a question comes up like this, you have people that look at the whole picture and they're just not looking at it from one myopic point.
Mhm.
And in that regard, so as a same black man, right, how do we combat the war on drugs in the streets? Because